Good afternoon, this is Felicity, and I'm speaking to you from my library. I still think I'm going to do a little show and tell on my Loeb library, which you can see even more clearly behind me now. It's over there, my beautiful green and reds. But I thought that instead of doing that this afternoon, that I would do another installment of what I've loosely started calling Treasures of My Library. What's a treasure? A treasure is anything that I really like, that I like more than another book, which makes it very hard because I like all my books, but there are a few which definitely stand out from the rest, and I have chosen a giant stack today to show and tell, to share with y'all out there, and to enjoy a little bit of it myself again as I go through them, because some of them don't actually get pulled from the shelf that often. So here we go. This is Treasures of My Library Part 3. The first one I picked is actually kind of a spin-off on another book that I was showing the last time from my treasures, which was the Circus of Dr. Lau with illustrations by Artsy Bashev. And I have in my collection a lovely book by Artsy Bashev with his art called As I See. And it has a couple of the illustrations from Circus of Dr. Lau, but it has a lot of his other work, samples of it, because he was incredibly prolific and productive artist. This one is a reprint. I don't think I could afford to get the original. Well, I suppose I could if I robbed a bank, but there you go. This was originally published in. This was originally published in. What was it? I don't know. 1954, and this particular volume was reprinted in 1982, and it's really a very attractive reprint, and there's a lovely introduction by Bill Plimpton with a very funny little cartoon in the corner just to kind of set us off on the right foot. I'm going to see if I can find a couple to show you just how crazy this guy's imagination was. So he did what I kind of loosely think of as sort of tech fantasy scenarios. Here's one to see if I can get it up close, because it's pretty wild. So he did these animations or I would say I guess inanimate objects achieve some kind of animation. They become little living creatures, and he did, well, let's see, he did machines, he did, there's a person's thumb there, he did machines, he did anything that was not originally intended to be a, that was pretty funny, was not intended to be actually something alive, but he made it so instead. Oh yes, here's the funny robot, the improved humans. There's the lady, there's the gent, so he had some fun with that. Let's see, oh yeah, there is a couple of them that are almost not really fit to print for public, but they're still very funny. What an artist he was! He was really a master. There we go. That's the executive telephone, and he was his attention to detail was phenomenal. There's like telephone cord, even though there's like a little twisty bit in it. So this is a selection from the enormous output of Artsy Bashev. He also was not really I think he was also a refugee, or at least his family was, because he was really not very much into all the various fascist organizations that were around when he was. I think he may have escaped during World War II. But it's glad to hear, yes. Who's chasing who? This is a couple of little samples. I shall try not to spend too long on each one, because I think I counted I have about 19 books in this particular iteration that I thought I would show. But okay, yeah, there's here's another couple. So let's see if I can get any of them up close and see. Wire drawing machine, and they have all too human characteristics. They're grumpy, they're happy, they're ecstatic, they're sly, they're willful, they're resigned. They're great. So there you go, Artsy by Chef, as I see. And it's actually, it is definitely a treasure in my library. I saw that and I realized immediately that I absolutely needed to have a copy of this. It's got a very funny little intro by Bill Plinton, who's clearly a fan. But as I see, by Artsy by Chef. Well, that is beautiful. Treasure of my library, number one. The next one, I think I saw originally, it was either a posting on Facebook or Instagram or something, and it was Neil Gaiman's site, and he said, oh look, somebody just sent me a copy of this, and he flipped through it on in a little video, and I said, oh, I need that right away. So I went down to my local bookstore and put an order for it and said, yes, of course I'll pay for it in advance. So here is a really lovely modern take, illustration-wise anyway, on the Shinamat, which is an absolutely ginormous epic poem. I don't think I've seen a full copy of it anywhere. It was a huge thing, and most people who have translated it or have presented some version of it have extracted some of the famous stories. Rustum, some of them are there in more of their entirety than others, but the entire poem is a masterpiece. It was written, I think, Ferdowsi lived 940 AD to 10 something or other, and this was his masterpiece. He spent most of his life on it. He did work for, I think he wrote probably the equivalent then of advertising or jingles, but this one was his masterpiece, and is definitely far outlived everybody and anything who was around at the time. So this is his Epic of the Persian Kings, and I'm going to share a little bit inside because this is just scrumptious. It's got its little it's got its case. It's pretty spiffy, and here is the front cover of it, and it's got an equally gorgeous side. Let's see if I can do this without not upside down. So it's got a really nice spine there. It does not have a fancy, also not really a fancy page thing. It's except that the pages, you'll see in a second when I open it up, there looks like there's some kind of like multicolored thing going on, because the whole book is a masterpiece of computer collage. So the artist, who obviously clearly loved these stories, had taken many classical Persian pieces of artwork and had captured in very high resolution color, had captured various little snippets of it, and then moved it around, creating this incredibly gorgeous and very beautifully done collage. Sometimes you'll see with the mast. Let's see, here's a good example. He'll have a few of the important characters. They show out front there, and still haven't figured out how to get this really well. There we go. That's pretty good. So he'll have the characters who are all captured from some classical Persian painting, and then to represent an army or a massed thousands, he'll have a little snippet that'll repeat over and over and over again. Say, here are your faceless minions, and it's really hard to show you up close, but it is really beautifully done and in gorgeous color. Let's see a couple of other masterful. There's the story of Rustum is actually a really pretty amazing one. Let's see. Here's another one where he has. His I'm not going to have much love with the glare because these are very shiny pages, but it has there's the faceless, well, not faceless, but the repeated minions, the army down in the corner, and then he has the lead characters there. They are individually represented there as elephants and carriages and people, and just beautiful. And it's not the whole thing, obviously, but it is a very fair compilation of the stories that people are looking for in this one. There's the Kings of Yore, fascinating. hero was born, Rustam, and then most of the middle section is the story of Rustam, and then the fall of Rustam, and then the offspring and the very end of the house of Rustam. So it's about 600 pages of lovely, 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 beautiful modern style. It's if you're a classicist, you're probably going to say, "Well, this is what a sacrilege! How dare they do this with a computer?" But the person who did this was very fair to the piece and felt that this would be a really nice, a really interesting way to introduce somebody who didn't know, like me, or somebody much younger who really likes that kind of collage and who appreciates how much work it is to do that, would make them really interested in the very timeless but very old story of Shahnameh. And anyway, this is mine and I love it. This is definitely a treasure of my library. Shahnameh, the Epic of the Persian Kings by Ferdowsi. Also massively heavy. So here's one that I had for a really long time. I think this one was actually a Christmas present. Was it to myself? Was it for me to my parents? And then when we finally broke up the library at the end, I said, I think I got this one in the long ago, and I'm going to take it back because it's such a pretty thing. It's one of those gifts that you can buy from the Metropolitan Museum gift store around about Christmas time, and you send off with them. And there was a picture of it in the magazine or the catalog at the time. It's a really long time ago. And I thought, oh, this would be delightful. So this is one of those. Metropolitan Museum of Art. There's the spine. It says this is exactly what it is. Ooh, let's see, I lost it there. There on the spine, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it is a reproduction of. I have to look at the instruction and the intro and see again. But this is got no words. This is not a book with words. It is, as it says, a flight of butterflies, and it is a facsimile of a book in the collection of the Metropolitan. And this is one of those wonderful books that you can look at it here. It goes like this. It opens out all the way. It's an accordion book, and every single page has. This is the facsimile of the original intro page here. Beautiful calligraphy, and then, well, there is a poem. There's a little intro as a poem, and then the very first page. Oh, I'm entranced. And I remember looking at it, thinking, I could just look at this all day. Every single page is a little flight of butterflies, different colors, different shapes, different shades. You get lost in it forever. It's an absolutely beautiful, exquisite book. And I've had it for a really long time. I guess the title will probably tell you. It's got my signature of Felicity Brown was my maiden name. That dates it. So this was from 1979, and yeah, this was probably one of the was probably a Christmas gift in the long ago, and I got it back again, and I have it, and it's in my library now, and I'm very happy to have it. This Flight of Butterflies is a facsimile of an old Japanese document. So I gotta show you a couple more here. Every single page, flights of butterflies all the way through. It's really beautiful. Not one single one is the same. And a more recent acquisition or love, passion, interest, whatever you want to call it. The time before last, when I was in Ireland visiting, and I took our son to visit his relatives there and to see things, and we were given a tour of the local museum. Which, for whatever reason, when I was there, I wasn't really a tourist. I was living there, going to school and whatnot. We went to the museum, and I said, "Wow, who is the artist who did these drawings and the stained glass?" And the answer was, "This is the work of Harry Clarke." Oh, who's Harry Clarke? I know better than that now. Harry Clarke was a phenomenal artist. He drew, painted, and he did stained glass. And if you ever happen to be in Cork, do make a point of going to the University College Cork and visit the Honan Chapel, because there are his the stained glass windows in glorious, glorious color. They're phenomenal. But I got a couple of books that I've subsequently got, one or a couple of which I've already shown. One was the illustrated Edgar Allan Poe, illustrated by Harry Clark. The other was, did I show you other Harry Clark? I can't remember. Anyway, I've got two here that I've acquired since then. This one I think was a biblio thing during the COVID shutdown, and I was not able to go to my favorite bookstores and spend my money there. So I did go looking specifically for different things, and I found a couple of lovely books. This is one of them, Charles Perrault's Fairy Tales, illustrated by Harry Clark. I had one which was earlier drawings, and they weren't as interesting to me because they were more sort of like not boilerplate, but they were sort of very much in the style of somebody else. These are Harry Clark's own style, and let's give it. This is a fairly nice copy with reasonably nice paper. This particular printing, well, this one was reprinted in 1986, and it says it's a facsimile, and they did a nice job with the paper. But there's, yeah, there's the Aubrey Beardsley-esque drawing. So this was definitely later work of Harry Clark, but it's got a bunch of color tipped in illustrations, which is, well, actually, no, this isn't tipped in. These are. This man had the misfortune to have a blue beard. It's pretty harmless looking version of a ferociously terrifying character. So these are Perrault's versions of some famous fairy tales, and the illustrations absolutely make it. And we're really familiar with Perrault's illustrations because we know all of or his fairy tales, because we've all read them in collections of things for years and time immemorial since we were kids. These illustrations are quite different. This is so Aubrey Beardsley. Yes, this is just, these are wonderful. So these are examples of Beardsley drawing, Beardsley painting, his illustrations, all very much in that style, and absolutely wonderful. I was so happy to have this. I don't think I even read the I don't think I even read the stories because I know them already, but I wanted to look at the pretty pictures. So the other Harry Clark that I got was not on Biblio, but I found it in my local one of my local bookstores, the Dark Carnival, and this was definitely one of those impulse buys because I saw it in it. I said, ooh, Harry Clark, and then I looked at it, and about 3/4 of the text is in Japanese, and Japanese, kind of expensive. Harry Clark. Who cares if it's in Japanese? It's Harry Clark. So this one actually is really neat because this actually has a very wide range of his artistic style and his various different endeavors, from the pen and ink style, sort of what I keep calling Aubrey Beardsley, but it's Beardsley-esque, but it's not really. It's Harry Clark in his own style. Here's so it's the painting ones, but this one also has examples of his stained glass, which are, whoa. So yeah, no, it doesn't give you that much of a feeling so far away, but you're gonna have to take my word for it. These are pretty phenomenal. I don't know if they've got this is the Dublin City Gallery. That was Dublin City Gallery. Here's this one is in St. Patrick's Church in Kildare. He was a local artist. A very, very fine one. I'm still trying to get this thing out. So this is a stained glass, and there's a lot of places all around Ireland that have examples of his stained glass, and the museum there in Cork had some sort of divorce that were not part of a building, but were just sort of like separate there in the museum. And that was my first introduction to Harry Clark, and I have never forgotten it. I will not, because every time I run into a book now or see that there's a book that I don't have with something of Harry Clark's in it, I get it. So this was a little weird, a little extravagant, because I can't really read a whole lot of the text, but it's Harry Clark. I don't need to. The pictures speak for themselves. It says, Harry Clark, an imaginative genius in illustrations and stained glass arts. Text by Hiroshi Uno in Japanese. There you go. It's a treasure in my library. 2 treasures. So there's my Harry Clarks amongst others. And, okay, so it's kind of like making a little swath around here because I'm going to end with one of my head scratching conundrums here, which is how on earth am I going to find shelves for this size of book? Some of them are fairly clear. So not so long ago, I went to my first antiquarian book fair and found, in addition to that amazing, a book published in 1659, I also acquired a handful of lovely first edition science fiction and fantasy books, which just jumped right off the shelf and said, you must buy me, because if you don't, you're going to be sorry forever and ever. This is probably one of my favorites. Yep, it's Gene Wolfe, and I can't remember if I've actually shared this. I'm sorry about the glare. This is just, it's got this very protective mylar, which is a good thing. Oh, this is The Sorcerer's House by Gene Wolfe. And what is it? This Tim Powers says it is the perfect fantasy novel, and he is absolutely right. It is a really, really wonderful piece. But in addition to that, it is signed by Gene Wolfe, and that's it's not worth the price of admission alone, because it was a little bit expensive, but really first edition. This was right out of his hands. We go, Sorcerer's House, introduction by Tim Powers. It's a really pretty edition. Who's the publisher of this one? Hull House, I think. And there it is, 2010. Tim Powers says Gene Wolfe's The Sorcerer's House is one of the very few perfect fantasy novels. I agree 100%. So there it is. It's signed by Gene Wolfe to Betty Hall, my favorite editor, and everything else. This isn't too long. I don't know when he died, but no, actually he lived for a long time. It was after that. So this was this is the first one I read after, and then I've read it a second time because it's a compulsion. You start reading and you realize, oh, this is a really great story. Wait, what just happened? Then you finish it and you say, oh no, I finished the book. I'm gonna have to start it all over again. So it's in extremely good condition. It was a whole, I think the particular booth there had a whole bunch of books from a particular, maybe they had gotten a consignment of them, because it was a whole bunch of really, really tasty science fiction fantasy novels from about this period. So there you go. Sorcerer's House by Gene Wolfe, definitely one of the treasures of my library. Where will it stop? I keep getting more books. I keep having more treasures. It'll never stop. I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. Oh no. Anyway, there you go, Gene Wolfe. So another book that I've actually had for quite a while, and this was something that I think was probably I discovered about James Branch Cabell I guess it's Cabell from The Other Change of Hobbit, and I've been collecting various, not really collecting fanciful volumes, but just finding anything I could of his, because the first one I read was funny, witty, a little naughty, kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of old school. Because I think so. When did Cabell? This was originally, I forget when it was originally. It was 1921. Hugh Walpole has a little essay in here. This particular one is kind of a neat. It's a little tattered. No cover or anything. This is Jurgen by James Branch Cabell. And it was a very nice Bodley Head publication, and yeah, a little bit the worse for wear, but still not damaged. The illustrations are lovely. This is the one I was thinking earlier. It wasn't the Harry Clark. It was this one where the pictures are tipped in. You can see there, it's just tipped in there, and they're really pretty. They're really beautiful, and some of them are. I won't show them here. So this is a Jurgen. If you don't know this one, you should probably read it. If you don't like this kind of thing, don't read it. But the pictures are worth it. A Comedy of Justice, already tongue-in-cheek, Jurgen, with illustrations by Frank Papé, and this intro by Hugh Walpole. And let's see if I can find pictures that are fit for public consumption here. Maybe not, huh? Okay, not that one. Let's see what else we got here. Ooh, there's a good one. Jurgen's sword was twisted from his hand and sent flashing over the balustrade. It's pretty nice. nice work there, and the printing is lovely. The paper is pretty good and will stand several more readings if I'm careful. It will allow me to not be embarrassed when I pass it on to whoever is the successor to my library, because it will last longer than I do. But this is one of the treasures of my library. I have several books by James Branch Cabell, but not quite as nice a printing as this one. If I could, I would get more of them like this, but this was kind of like a one-off thing. I don't even remember how it might have been Moe's, maybe somewhere else that I found this. It was terribly expensive, but anyway, there you go. It is what it is. It's mine, and I pretty much, when I see books like this, I tend to suddenly become blind to the price tag at the beginning. I just say, yeah, well, I want it, so there you are. I got it. Couple of very different things now. So of course, those of you who know me know that I am also, for my sins, I spent a very long time learning how to play the violin, then play the viola, and I've spent a lot of time and money getting professional training. So School of Music in Cork in Ireland was one of them, Mills College for a year and a half in Oakland, and finally finished up at the Conservatory of Music in San Francisco. So serious, not doing it for a living, because who could buy the books that I want on a musician's salary? I'd have to be a lot better than I am. Anyway, but I do take music seriously, and of course, if there's a book about it, I'm going to get it. So I was acquainted with the gentleman who wrote this series. He was a parent at one of the schools for a while that my son was going to, and it always kind of takes me back when I realize that somebody was like, oh yeah, hey Richard, how's it going? As that he happens to be Dr. Richard Cheruskin, and he's a professor of some note at the university. Anyway, he produced his magnum opus, is this very large and gigantic replacement for the Grout's History of Western Music. Those of you who study music, or either remember it or groan thinking about it. But Richard Cheruskin's Western History, this is the Oxford History of Western Music, and it's actually a fairly important work, and it's quite comprehensive. It's not like Grove's dictionary or encyclopedia, which is more like a lookup thing. You're gonna, alphabetic. You're gonna go look up your composer. You're gonna look up your piece or instrument or whatever it is that you want to know a little bit of details, like any good encyclopedia. This is a history book, and it's 6 volumes. And when I saw that it had come out, I just jumped right on was it the phone then? Nah, it was the computer by that time, and ordered myself a copy. So this is obviously perfect because it's brand new. I bought it new. It's perfect because I take care of my books when I buy them new. But I am the first owner of this book. It was published in 2005. It is first edition, probably the only edition. I don't know if this is something that would get reprinted again, but it is a very important compendium. It takes you through everything. It has a lot of exhaustive lists of examples of how music has changed, taking melodies that would have been prevalent in people's ears at a certain time, and how they pass through different kinds of music, both secular and sacred. And he has written them out so that those of us who cannot read the ancient notes, I will give you an example, who cannot read the ancient notes that well, can actually read what's going on in them by his beautiful transcriptions. That's one of his specialties, was very early music. Anyway, so I'm very happy to have this. I have not read the whole thing from end to end because it's a massive tome. I do dip in and out, and when I have the need to look up something that's no longer something that I can actually, but I don't want to do it online, I've got the book. Dr. Professor Richard Cheruskin, History of Western Music. All right, moving along. So the other big, huge thing that I do that has nothing to do with books, really, is I decided when I turned a certain age, which will remain nameless, that I was going to go and do something else for a while. And I thought, I like making things. I'm going to go learn to be a silversmith. So I went to a jewelry making school in San Francisco. Now the gentleman is retired. It was the Revere Academy in San Francisco, and I learned how to make jewelry. It was absolutely fascinating, and I loved every bit of it. And of course, I always get the books. So I got several books that discuss making, but the things that always have intrigued me and still do are books that that give some theory or give some design. And this one here, this is the Bible of jewelry and jewelers. It's Opie Untracht's Jewelry Concepts and Technology. It's a huge fat book, and the price was pretty huge too at the time. But this is one of those books that you really need to have, especially if you're interested in the history of jewelry, if you're interested in serious design and really getting serious about making. This particular one has, this is the one. And I remember, so it's alphabetical. It's ordered by the things that you would do in what order that you would do them. First you get tools, and then all the different methods from the simplest to the most complicated. And the thing that absolutely keeps me coming back again and again is that every time I think, I don't have any more ideas, I can't think of anything new, what am I supposed to do now? I'll just open almost at random, and there'll be some piece, every page has some fascinating piece of master quality jewelry, and I'll say, oh, that's really interesting. Hey, that gives me some ideas. And this book is chock-a-block with it. It is also, in a way, it's not a read-through from end to end, although you could if you were really bored. It's about 840 pages. There's indices, there's charts, there are tables, there are some colored illustrations. The color is a little disappointing because it was pretty early work, but for the time, it was fantastic. And, oh, well, actually, I don't care. They're good enough because it's just gorgeous. So this actually is, I have a lot of books on fancier jewelry that I'll never, ever be able to make anything like, just things like tiaras and things with massive, dripping with precious stones. This has actually got enough. It's got some of that too, but it has everything else in it. And even if you're brain dead and can't even get anything out of the designs, you can sit there and look at pictures that show all of a certain kind of tool. My goodness, this is a really useful book. It is also definitely a treasure of my library. It's one of those grand books. I did not blink an eye when I paid the price for it. I just said, I actually really need this book. So there you go, Jewelry Concepts and Technology by Opie Untracht. Start. I can't put them over. They'll probably break the card if I put anything more over there. All right, so we have a couple little tiny ones here before I set into the next round of picture books. This one qualifies as the smallest book in my collection. It is a book of Methodist hymns, and it's just the words to them. The words are very tiny, and there it is. This is also one of the older books. Was one of the older books before I got the other one. This was printed in New York. It is Hymns for the Use of the Methodist Episcopal Church. There you go. It doesn't actually say when this was printed, but yeah, we go 1849. And at one point, it was the oldest book in my collection. It definitely still is the smallest book in my collection. In a minute, I'm going to show you the largest book in my collection. That's something. And I got this. This was my mother's. And it's not that I really look at the hymns or anything. It's just kind of a cool thing. And periodically, I open it and go like, oh my goodness, they're so small. Yeah, so it's got all the words. If you were in the Methodist Church at that time and you wanted a little kind of a pocket primer, you'd pull out your little hymnal, and there's all the numbers. They're all correct. And you would just follow along, and presumably you would know the tunes because there's no tunes in here. It's just the words. There you go. Teeny tiny little book. And since we're talking about small books here, I have another very early acquisition, which was a gift from my father, and it is the first lobe that I ever owned, and it was brand new when I was given it back in the whenever, and it is really tattered and torn because when I went on my long walkabout, my year abroad, which turned into 3 years abroad, I took this little guy with me. This, and I think it was the lyrical and critical essays of Camus. Don't ask. I was, yeah, 20. What can I say? Anyway, this is Apollodorus 1, and it is a very, very fine look at Apollodorus. There was 2 volumes of it, Apollodorus 1 and 2, and Apollodorus may have been an apocryphal figure, but the book isn't. These are a collection of the myths as they were known then. And they're collected together here. And this particular one, I didn't do a whole lot. I didn't annotate it, but I sure read it, and I sure beat it up. It cover's nearly gone. Anyway, this rates as a treasure of my library because it was the first lobe, and my dad gave it to me, and I will never get rid of it because there you go, Apollodorus 1, lobe number 1 for me. That same line, this is an oddity. The thing that sticks in my mind is that this is probably I'm a very, very late comer to science fiction, and this is probably the book that made me realize what I was missing. I've never seen anything else by him, and I've never seen anybody talking about this particular title, but I have here Paul van Herk's Where Were You Last Pluto Day, which is it's not really like anything else. It's definitely science fiction. It is not. It is kind of a romp is the wrong word. There we go. I'm going to read the back because it says it better than I can. Where Were You Last Pluto Day by Paul van Herk is a wildly satirical novel, different from any science fiction you have ever read, yet sure to delight every science fiction reader. It is no wonder that it won the Europa Award in 1972 for the best SF novel from its part of the world. And I've actually read this a number of times, and I'm laughing out loud and then kind of shivering and then kind of like crying a little bit because this is really crazy stuff. He's got it all going on there. I'm not going to go into it, but I brought this one on as a treasure because I've never seen it anywhere else. I've never seen it in another bookstore again, and again, I've not seen anybody actually discussing this particular one. I don't even know if Van Herk wrote anything else. But Where Were You Last Pluto Day is worth, if you ever see it, that's worth the price of admission. It's a really excellent story. Weird, but excellent. There you go. It too is a treasure. All right, moving along here. So I've got, before I move into the really big boys here, this one is from my parents' library. This was my mother's, and she was a very, very big Remedios Varo fan, and made me one too. Remedios Varo was one of the surrealist artists from who's in Mexico, who was working in Mexico, and I adore her art. Couldn't be possibly more different from the other ones I've shown you so far. Artsy Bashev, who I also really like, and Harry Clark. She was a very polished artist, but surreal doesn't even begin to describe it. There's a few favorites of mine in here. This one is this particular volume. I'm going to call it a treasure because I've also never seen this one in any store either. This is a publication from the America Latina Ediciones Era SA, and it was I think this was actually from an exhibit, but it's completely in Spanish, and I do not think you can actually get it anymore. It was part of some kind of an exhibition, and it's really not something I've seen. I'm going to show you one of my favorite pictures because I'm sure it is in here. I have 3 of Remedios Varo's books. All of them were my mother's, and I treasure them. Let's see if I can find it. This is it's one of the big ones. Well, you'll see when you'll know when you'll understand when I show you which one it is. They're all phenomenal. Oh my goodness, yes, they're all phenomenal. This is one of them. Let's see if I can find the other one. Let's see. Here we go. This is probably one of my favorite paintings, period, of all time. This is the Sorcerer. Let's see if I can get there. It's got the musical theme going on, and there's all these little bits and pieces rolling across the floor there that talk about animated inanimate objects. And this is a truly phenomenal piece, and I would probably give my eye teeth to be somewhere where I could actually see it in person. Then they'd have to clean all the glass off after I drooled all over it. It's one of those just amazing, amazing pieces. But then they're all amazing. This one just really, this one, every time I look at this, I get sucked into it. There's just something everywhere you look. There's a little alchemist's bottles. There's the little chest of all the curious bits and this strange arcane tools and everything. Those of you who are familiar with Remedios Varo know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, this book it has been pretty well kept, considering that my mom had it for a really long time, and it got looked at a lot. She was very fond of Remedios Varo, and she trusted me to not destroy it, which was pretty trusting of her, because when I was much younger, I think I was not that careful. But I am now, and I'm taking good care of this book because I like this one a lot. This is one of my favorite books. I have 3 of them. One of them has a little better color reproduction, but this is a really gorgeous book. I mean, I love it. So there you go. Remedios Varo, definitely one of the treasures of my library. Speaking on the subject of surrealist art, this one I acquired extremely recently. This is a compendium of a variety of different artists, all so Anxious Visions. There you go, surrealist art, and I got it because I had been reading or hearing about Lenora Carrington, who's somebody I still haven't really got enough of. Although I have one of her one actual book only of hers, which is pretty amazing. I could stand to have more of her work, but this one had enough of the other artists that I am also very intrigued by. Joan Miro, some people I'd never heard of, some Max Ernst, a couple of things here. So this is and this does this has the text in English, so actually I was able to read this, but this one I acquired really not that long ago at all, less than a year ago. I was very happy to get it. It's not terribly expensive. It had been around for a while, but it was one of those ones at Dark Carnival. I keep going. I'll go into their various sections, and I think I've seen everything on the shelves, and I look again, and I said, well, you know what? Actually, I missed that. So there you go. I love bookstores for that reason. Is that they're there to sell you things, but they have the best bookstores have the most interesting things tucked away that sometimes even they forget that they have. So there we go. This is surrealist art, and there's quite a number of artists represented in it. That was a worthy book to have. It was published. This was actually, I think, an exhibition. This is an exhibition for the 1990 collection, and this was one that came and went altogether dismayingly too fast. But there's a number of really very excellent essays by excellent people, and the pictures in this one, the color reproduction is really pretty good. Well, I mean, it would have been a museum. It would have been like an exhibition catalog, but a very nice one. So that was fun, and I'm glad I have that one. Another one that I've had for a very long time. When I was in high school, I took Mandarin Chinese, and amongst other things. And one of the things that that we were to do was to prepare, along with learning Chinese, which was fairly challenging, was we were supposed to write reports on something that interested us. And even at that time, I was interested in beautiful things. And at that time, we had a store that was in Berkeley, and I think it was what's finally devolved into what's East Wind bookstore on University, but at that time it was over on Shattuck, and they had a pretty interesting collection of things. One of the things they had there was this really lovely book on Chinese art. This one is this was published by the Wenwu Press in Peking. Notice that this is an oldie from 1974. Handcrafts from the collections of the Palace Museum, written in it's written in English, and it's got English and Chinese, and it's not too bad for a fairly non-Western publication. inscriptions in the book. The book is actually entirely in Chinese, but the little cheat guide is handy because I didn't have that much Chinese, and I did want to know what it was I was reading. But obviously, again, it's like that Harry Clark book that's all in Japanese. I basically didn't really care because it's full of phenomenal pictures of amazing art. And yeah, I did kind of get interested in things like the arts, the craft arts, or at least that fed some more of that, because there's all these lovely cloisonne pieces, and there was all this phenomenal jade, and oh my goodness, yes. So these are all things that did not get destroyed or lost or whatever during the Revolution, and are still around today. And for something that was published in 1974, the color reproduction is really pretty good. Anyway, I have had this for an extremely long time. It has again got my early name there. It was 1974, so I would have still been in high school when I got this. I had a job. I could buy books, and so I did. Anyway, this is one of the treasures of my library. I have obviously never seen it anywhere else, but actually I've never looked, because what am I going to do? Sell it? I don't think so. I'm coming down the home stretch. We're working our way up in size here. So now we have moved into the department of, well, I want these books, but where am I going to put them on my shelves? This one, I've got 3. At least I got 3 because 3 is all I could find. These are the absolutely wonderful collection of the we'll call them Joseph Campbell picture books. These are many of the stories that show up in the Mass of God and Here with a Thousand Faces, and pretty much everything else of his I've read so far. But these are stories accompanied with really excellent pictures and charts, and it's really big. And here's an example. I just open it random, and oh my goodness, look at there, pictures galore, plus the stories that go with them. This talks about the actual artwork, but then he segues immediately into a myth or a story or a folktale or a folklore that goes along with it. And all 3 of them are great, and I call these my rainy day reading projects, because I'll just dip in, and it's the kind of thing you can look at when you really can't think of anything else. The book is big, and you're going to see me getting farther and farther and farther away from the camera, because the books I'm going to show you now are getting bigger and bigger. This one was a gift from a family member of mine, and oh yeah, this was totally unexpected, and I looked at it and I said, what? Wittgenstein? This is I Declare a Permanent State of Happiness, but it's not. It's Kenneth Goldsmith, and he has done something really, really clever. I will now display the cleverness. So he, limited edition. What he did was he took this is really huge, little floppy, so I'm going to try not to. He took a manuscript of I Declare a Permanent State of, a permanent state of happiness, and he artified it. Some of it looks like, like somebody who's doing major annotations, and most of it looks more like the little pictures. He just drew things in there. Sometimes it has something to do with what's going on, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he's done some little very clever kind of collage-y things. And although I'm not super familiar with Wittgenstein, because I'm not quite up into that league in my philosophical readings yet, but this book was a lot of fun, and every page has something kind of strange and interesting in it. There's a couple of them that look like grocery lists. And some of them, and of course none of these pictures were there. He drew them all, so he's an artist, and sometimes it has a lot to do with what's there. There's a blue box. He was musing on what he read, or he was just doodling, or he was doing both. And this one was really cool, and it was a present to me, and it's pretty astonishing. It actually has, I've got over my clock over there, I've got the little seal that goes in the back, but I can't store it with it because it hurts the next book in line. Got 2 more to go here. This one is what I call the ultimate genealogical chart of the ultimate dysfunctional family. This was done before computers. This is the genealogical chart of Greek mythology, and it was not done on a computer. This was done with the old-fashioned card system, and it is a mind-boggling piece of work. This was compiled by Harold Newman and son John Newman, and was published by the University of North Carolina Press in 2003. 2003. No, did it originally come out then? I don't know. Anyway, 2003. I mean, there should have been computers by then, but this was not done that way. Or if they did, it was a very primitive one. But I'm going to show you. Hold this up. This one definitely classifies as a book that I had absolutely no room for my shelf. This was a gift from my father, and I do not believe that I will actually ever be. Okay, there we go. This is it's like a mural. And you have references, cross-references, every major god, their offspring, their children, there's gods and semi-demigods and mortals, and everybody else who gets a mention anywhere is listed here and cross-referenced and cross-referenced, and it's it's mind-boggling and eye-watering, and it is a lot of fun. And yeah, you start getting the realization that so if you took literally somebody like Zeus or one of the other gods, actually having all these offspring, you say, well, I'm really glad I don't know that guy. But of course, it's a parable, it's a myth, it's not. They didn't actually do that. They're like a principle, but still. So you'd start off with, oh look, here's this. Starts with Uranus at the top and Gaia, and then it'll go down, and then it'll say continue on the next page, because well, it was definitely going to run out of room. So this is this was a really amazing. This took a long time to produce, and I do believe that most of it was done not on a computer. Back it says, a major contribution to our understanding of how ancient Greeks organized the vast corpus of figures constituting what we call Greek mythology. I am quite grateful to have it at my disposal. So this unique work is the first comprehensive genealogical chart of virtually all of the named figures of Greek mythology that can be shown to be related. Crazy. Anyway, this is a lot of fun, and for somebody with my unholy and unhealthy interest in Greek mythology, it totally fills the bill. Okay, the last book this has kind of gone way longer than I want, but this last book that I have here is the biggest book in my library. And can you actually see that from here? This is like not elephant folio size, but it is pretty huge. This was another one of those like, oh, I really have to have this book. This is a collection of the works of, I don't believe I can show you the inside of it. It's just way too big. It's a monograph of Chris Ware, and it has got everything in it. I can't even begin to describe how utterly cool this is, but let's just see if I can find one of the crazy pages of he's a comic book artist, and everything else aside, I haven't even begun to see everything that's in there. And neither will you, because I'm not even sure I can hold this up. Here we go. If you even dared to do this, there's also this cutout thing. You can, of course, the little project is a little camera that you could do, and it's too big for the screen. Anyway, this is a little cutout thing. There's these huge full-on pages with everything. There's the end papers with his robotics in it. And I don't know if I realize, I've got to show at least one of these. Okay, here's one of the massive fold-out pages. Sorry about that. This has gone on for almost an hour. I really need to stop. You're going to get really bored with this. Anyway, there you go. Oh, you can't see me, but you can see. Massive book. So this is Chris Ware. This is really fun. I mean, it's kind of one of those like, I'm brain dead, can't think of anything to do. I think I'll just look at the biggest book in the universe. I don't have, the Audubon book, so I'll look at Chris Ware's monograph instead. Anyway, thank you for watching. It's been kind of a long video here, but this is another very large subset of the Treasures of My Library, Part 3, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.